Hello, this is Brandon Mirage, live and in stereo. I'm coming to you with an interview with Miss Taylor Gady. Taylor, please say hello.
Hello.
Taylor agreed to sit down with me to discuss her thoughts and her opinions about what it is to be a woman living in the 21st century, and she agreed to just give us her perspective on the topic today. So, Taylor, if you don't mind, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself in simple words?
Yeah, sure. So, as you already said, my name is Taylor. I'm a 25-year-old woman, so a quarter of my life is already gone. And I also have a bachelor's in English, a master's in divinity, and I work with nonprofits as well.
Great, wonderful. So let's dive in. First question, I already hinted it at the introduction. What is it like being a woman in the 21st century? And I know this is a very broad, very general question, but I want you to, just give me, in simple words, like what that means to you and your own perspective in your own little corner of the U.S., like in this place in this time.
Sure. So yeah, as you said, it's kind of a broad question. So like looking at it from a bird's eye view, of course, like this is in the context of being America, and being a woman. I suppose like being in America, it's nothing of... Looking at the world around me, I would say there are some like privileges of being like a woman in America, if that makes sense. Of like, there's like safety, there aren't as many concerns as I would see in other places in the world. But there's also, if we're talking a little bit post-election, it's sort of difficult to be a woman because there's a lot of, I feel like, hot topics that are happening right now about abortion and so forth that makes it difficult to, even though me, personally, I don't plan on having children, it's a bigger concern of not just me, but other women around me, of those who want to have children or those who are undergoing pregnancies that they may not want or are unable to bring to term. That makes it really difficult and fearful for me as a woman, and thinking about my friends and my family and what that means for them.
Okay. Well, thank you for at least divulging that. So to go along, I guess, further with that, what are some common everyday struggles that you find most pertinent in your own life? And I guess in light of this, kind of this topic of abortion, but even more generally, just being post-election, what does that mean for you, and how does that make you feel? And again, what specific struggles do you feel like you deal with on the daily, I guess?
On the daily, I think there's just... Probably one of the most common everyday struggles is being seen as undervalued. So, even though for example, in the workplace, I love my job and I was very grateful for my workplace, and I work with a lot of women. But previously, when searching for a job, I feel like I was undervalued, even with the education that I had, the experience that I had. I felt like I was constantly being overlooked and pushed to the side. And there's also if we want to talk more post-election, with some of the cabinet that's being elected, we have some comments of women not being able to serve in the army and so forth.
Sure.
There's a lot of why are we undervaluing women and what they're capable of?
Sure. So in light of that, how would you say that you personally overcome these struggles? Or even, what avenues do you utilize to reconcile these struggles in your own life?
I always try to put myself at the forefront. I don't like to be overlooked or put to the side. This doesn't mean, being loud or being angry or trying to speak over people, but just asserting myself, bringing what my skills to the table and let them speak for themselves. I'm coming from a Christian background. there's this balance of being humble but also bringing your gifts forward as well. And striking that balance is something that's very important to me.
Good. So, this is kind of like the last question I'm going to ask you, Taylor, and it's more pertinent to, I guess, your perspective and your outlook and, you know, the future. And I say this in a very hopeful manner. Could you name a character of fiction from a novel or some sort of piece of literature that has deeply resonated with you and stands as a role model for you in your own life? And I say that, and the reason why I kind of want to pick on a piece of fiction or a piece of literature instead of maybe looking towards a real life example, like someone, you know, maybe like an actor, an actress, or like a politician or somebody, you know, that we could like look up to, someone famous, in our own real life context, is because sometimes literature, like you find these more moving characters that stand as like an epitome for what it means to be a man or a woman. And I kind of want to get your perspective of, you know, what does it really mean to be a woman in a literary sense, like, and how is that portrayed through you know, your own eyes, and like what do you see? So if you have somebody in particular, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. So, I mean, what comes to mind is my favorite work of literature is the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. And now the series composes of... So that book does have many different characters in it, primarily following Kyler, who loses his identity and who he was, but adopts a new identity, but somehow finds himself in that. But what really inspires me about that work, other than it just inspires me in writing in general, is Brent Weeks talking about it. He's a Christian author. And a lot of people complain, though, that his book is way too dark. The characters are all morally gray. They don't make good decisions. They make awful decisions, actually. How can this be a Christian work? And Brent Weeks' response was that Jesus didn't come to save a world of rainbows and unicorns. We're a fallen humanity. And his characters, though they make bad decisions, so they may not be the shining light, they eventually grow to become the salt of the earth almost. These beacons of light. And I think it speaks to a lot of meeting us where we're at in life and not expecting perfection out of us. And knowing that we can grow in that we're not expected to be perfect, but we're always growing to become our better selves. And I think every one of those characters in that book demonstrates that.
That's good. Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, Taylor.
You're welcome.